There are creatures in this galaxy that were never meant to be named. Forms so large, so slow, and so silent that they do not belong to the realm of war, but to the realm of myth. They do not attack. They do not speak. They do not acknowledge. Their existence is not a threat. It is a question. And that question is whispered only in the deep, where no light reaches and no soul should drift. Void whales are not beasts. They are not xenos. They are not demons. They are not anything the human mind is built to accommodate. If they can be categorized, they exist in a category that no imperial codifier has ever dared to create, the category of the unknowable. They move through the cold vacuum without the aid of wings, engines, or warp drives. They do not consume. They do not radiate. They glide, massive, impossible, unbothered, across the endless black, like monuments torn from gravity's embrace. To encounter one is not to observe a creature, but to be swallowed by presence itself. Across the millennia, fragments of encounters appear in astropathic blurts, scrap code sequences, and the maddened etchings of deranged voidfarers. Some speak of things blotting out the stars. Others describe moaning frequencies, long, low, resonant tones that infect thought and bleed into dreams. One story, buried in a lost Mechanicus expedition archive, claims a void whale passed through a fleet's gravity well and bent the curvature of space-time, causing the entire convoy to relive the same 19 seconds for 3 imperial months. And yet, they are rarely spoken of. They are never acknowledged in imperial dogma. No inquisitorial directive names them. No codex lists them. No High Lord has ever uttered their existence aloud in the halls of power. It is as if the Imperium itself has decided, in its vast inertia, that it is safer not to look too closely. Because the more you look, the more you begin to realize. These are not creatures that live in our galaxy. They are creatures our galaxy lives around. Which leads us to the only conclusion one can draw in the silence after encounter. They are older than us. They are larger than us. And they have already seen the end. There are no accurate diagrams, no anatomical charts, no dissected specimens, no scans that agree. Every attempt to define a void whale's shape is met with contradiction, error, or madness. What one witness describes as a cathedral of bone and translucent flesh, another swears was a glimmering lattice of starlight and shadow. Some say they resemble ancient Terran whales, massive finned beasts of the oceans, only stretched, broken, and made wrong by the void. Others see structures, impossible geometries, wings like gravity wells, rib cages that open into other dimensions. And still, they move. Across void logs and redacted Mechanicus manifests, we find obsessive attempts to map their structure. Vox thieves hidden aboard rogue traders record murmurs of gravimetric pulses emanating from their hearts. One heretic conclave claimed to have harvested a dermal scale, only for the material to phase shift into non-existence the moment it was analysed. The flesh resisted classification. It was neither organic nor synthetic. It did not register heat, light, or decay. It simply was. Which forces us to ask, are they even made of matter at all? Some among the Adeptus Mechanicus propose that void whales exist partially out of phase with real space, existing simultaneously in the warp and the materium, not fully within either, yet not apart. Others argue they are not creatures, but constructs, biological remnants of Dark Age mega-engineering, ancient shepherds of solar winds or cosmic frequencies, left to drift through a galaxy that no longer remembers their function. And there are those, heretics and radical xenoarchaeologists alike, who go further still, claiming void whales are not life forms at all, but thoughts made manifest, projections of the galaxy's own unconscious mind, swimming through time as much as space. We must also ask, if this is their true form, why has no one captured it? Why do PIC recorders blur, Auspex readings spike into chaos, and eyewitnesses forget what they saw the moment they speak it aloud? This is not an isolated phenomenon. Across thousands of encounter logs, a pattern emerges. Psychic interference. Not hostile, not deliberate. Just weight, presence, enough to overload cogitators, enough to shatter noospheric rituals, enough to make a ship's machine spirit scream in binary tongues. To look at a void whale is to break the contract between perception and reality. You are not looking at a creature, you are being looked through. And perhaps that is the key to it all. These entities were never meant to be observed. Their biology, if it exists, may not follow rules we were designed to comprehend. Their form is less a shape and more a trauma, an architectural scar upon the fabric of existence. So the Imperium stops asking, the Mechanicus burns its failed blueprints, the Inquisition silences every scream too strange to file, and the void remains vast and silent and waiting. But there are still those who chase the shape, who crave that one true glimpse. They never return. Or worse, they do. You will not find void whales in the official histories. There are no ecclesiastical sermons about their significance, no entries in the Munitorum's bestiaries, no sanctioned Mechanicus blueprints or inquisitorial threat assessments. But listen carefully in the quiet places, in the forgotten corridors of long-haul void ships, or among the cracked lips of dying navigators. And the truth bleeds through in fragments. They call them the Nameless Drift, the Saint Eaters, the Echo Leviathans, or simply them. On deep patrol routes between Segmentum Obscurus and the Halo stars, voidfarers speak of massive silhouettes passing just outside Auspec's range. Entities that never register on the cogitator, but whose presence makes the ship's gravity feel heavier, as though the void itself were watching. Some ships paint glyphs on their hulls in their honor. Others bolt silence charms to the engine cores, hoping to remain unnoticed. There are void cults that believe the whales are fragments of the Emperor's first breath, remnants of creation that still wander through space, unchained by time. In these rituals, to glimpse one is either a divine blessing or a death sentence. The difference depends on whether you speak of it afterward. The Navis Nobilite have their own tales. Not in their formal logs, of course, but passed through bloodlines, hidden in metaphors and dreams. There are stories of whales that swim the eddies of the warp itself, sheathed in silver flame, eyes like supernovae, pulling lost ships behind them like comets. Some navigators believe these beings are warp-anchored, not corrupted, not possessed, but ancient filters of the warp's madness. Others suspect the opposite, that their silence is a mask, and their gaze a judgment. And still the whispers continue. A lone Explorator Skitarii detachment once reported finding the skeletal remains of a whale-like behemoth embedded in the crust of a planetoid in the Adrantis Vale. The skull was the size of a manufacturum complex. Before the transmission cut out, the last Vox report mentioned the words, "We are inside its mouth, but it has no teeth, only runes." In the Calixis sector, an entire mining colony vanished after drilling into what they believed was a cavern of black crystal. What they uncovered was a single curved wall, an internal rib, miles long. They didn't even realize it until it began to shift. These accounts are not catalogued by the Adeptus Administratum. They are passed between crews in low-vox channels, etched into wall panels, coded into data looms, denied by the machine cult, buried by the Inquisition, but never truly forgotten. Because deep down, every soul who crosses the void knows space is not empty. It is haunted, not by ghosts, not by demons, but by truths too large to hold in the mind without breaking it. This is how belief spreads, not with banners and sermons, but with fragments, glimpses, rituals. The Imperium fears what it cannot define, but those who live in the stars, they remember. And some worship. There are ships that sail the void not in pursuit of war, nor conquest, nor even faith, but flesh. Silent vessels, forgotten by registry, masked in static and layered sanctity denial fields, drift across deep space like vultures, hunting for what should never be touched. And when they find it, they begin to cut. Void whales are not often found dead. When they are, it is rarely clear if they died at all. No signs of decay, no signs of struggle. Just a stillness so complete it threatens to silence the mind. These colossal forms, adrift in the black, become obsessions for those who find them, pilgrimages for the mad, resources for the desperate, altars for the damned. The Mechanicus calls these non-classified retrievals, but their true name on the New Spheric channels is Forbidden Harvests. Entire explorator fleets have been lost attempting to study, contain, or scavenge these titanic carcasses, not because of traps or enemies or warp storms, but because the thing they dared to touch was not fully dead. Or worse, it was never alive in the way they understood. Heretic war cults from the Eastern Fringe believe void whale remnants hold the biocybernetic truth of STC-level design. Flesh encoded with language, bone that conducts thought, tissue that remembers time. These cults build engines from meat, vox arrays from cartilage, augmetics from wet, quivering organs they can't fully stabilize. Their ships groan, their prayers are moist. Their machine spirits don't speak in binary, they hum. But it isn't just Heretecs. Rogue traders have sold slivers of void whale dermis on the black markets of Comora. Some claim the Eldari once hunted them for psychic insulation. Others believe the Dark Mechanicum has found ways to grow their remains into living armor, fed with pain and prophecy. There are even rumors that a segment of the Death Watch has confiscated a section of void whale nervous tissue sealed inside a null stasis vault, still twitching with ancient reflex. Even more terrifying is what happens to those who partake. The flesh is not stable, it alters the living. Exposure causes hallucinations, time distortion, neural degradation, and spiritual bleed. Adeptus biologists attempts to classify it all fail, because the flesh changes you before you can change it. In one case, an entire research station orbiting a harvested segment began to speak in identical phrases across vox, thought, and speech. It remembers you. They were purged, but the phrase was logged, and it has appeared again. Then there is the ritual harvest, not for science, not for wealth, but for belief. Cults dedicated to the whales have taken the remains as relics. One group in the Ghoul Stars devoured the brain tissue of a juvenile specimen over 37 days, claiming each bite brought clearer understanding of the galaxy's song. They went silent after that. Their last message was not a distress call, but a lullaby, sung backwards. This is the heresy of contact. The Imperium forbids it not because it is unholy, but because it is too tempting. The knowledge is too rich, the applications too endless, the meaning too seductive. You cannot touch the whale without it touching you back. And so the harvesters return to the void. They lie, they hide, they drift. And when they find another, they begin to cut again. The galaxy is not a food chain, it is not a pyramid, it is not a structure at all. It is a wound, gaping, infinite and raw, where predators emerge from places that should not exist and feed without pattern or mercy. In such a cosmos, even the greatest beings can be prey. Void whales are not at the top. We speak of them in whispers because they defy comprehension. But across scattered black box recoveries, forbidden auger recordings, and psychic feedback loops torn from dead navigators, there are signs, brief, flickering, unresolved signs, that something follows them. A derelict black ship found drifting near the Ghoul Stars recorded one such instance. It had tracked a void whale for 73 days, documenting its slow migration across a dead star cluster. Then the signal fractured, not lost, torn. The last clear transmission reads, "There is something behind it. There is something, copying its silence. It sees us seeing it." What follows is chaos, decks collapsing, crew speaking in mirrored tongues, hull ruptures in impossible geometry. The pick screens melt into static shaped like vertebrae. And then, nothing. The vessel is now classified as a no-go zone, not because of danger, because of resonance. Any ship that enters its orbit begins to broadcast the same fractured sentence. You are not first. Tyrannid hive fleets have been seen altering course to avoid carcasses believed to be void whale remains. In the Jericho Reach, a splinter fleet known for aggressive biomass harvesting bypassed an entire asteroid belt to avoid a single drifting ribcage, glowing faintly with bioluminescent scars. The Ordo Xenos believes this is not reverence, it is fear. The Void Whale is not untouchable. Something else touched it first, something that leaves its own mark. Then there are the warp shadow events. Ships that pass near these creatures, living or dead, sometimes experience shadow blots on their Geller fields. These aren't demonic incursions. They're something else. Shapes without signature, motion without mass. Entities that emerge only when the whale's gravity wells collapse into silence. Some tech priests theorize these are echo predators, beings that do not hunt the whale, but its presence. They follow the psychic ripple it makes across space, and when the ripple fades, they feed. The most chilling account comes from an inquisitorial expedition that tracked a pod of 3 void whales into the halo stars. Only the Inquisitor's personal astropath returned, blind, unconscious. He woke days later and wept blood as he spoke. They were being herded by something louder than thought. We mistook them for gods. They were running. Running. The idea that void whales are not apexes, but refugees, shifts everything. Their silence is no longer divine. It is protective. Their slow, impossible movement is not majesty, it is desperation. And their avoidance of inhabited systems, warp corridors, and high-traffic space lanes, it is not indifference, it is evasion. Because they are not alone out there, and whatever follows them is worse. The Adeptus Mechanicus does not believe in mysteries. It believes in misclassification, in lost data, in forgotten schemata. What cannot be understood is simply that which has not yet been indexed. Yet there are things the cult Mechanicus does not catalogue, not because it is unwilling, but because the machine spirit flinches. Void whales exist in the margins of the noosphere. They are not unknown to the Mechanicus. Quite the opposite. They are avoided, which is far worse. Deep within the data looms of forge worlds like Styges 8 and Metallica, there are red-coded data vaults whose titles translate loosely as Unfolding Silence, Flesh Unborn, or Thought Void Vectors. These are not designations. They are warnings, words chosen to repel curiosity rather than invite inquiry. And yet, curiosity persists. Heretic enclaves have long obsessed over the nature of void whales, attempting to bridge sacred logic with living anomaly. The results are grotesque. Machine-flesh hybrids coded in binary devotion, ship engines designed to bleed, cogitators grafted with pieces of neuron flesh believed to originate from whale remains. They believe these beings were part of some ancient standard template construct, a biological ship form birthed in the dark age of technology, engineered to traverse the stars by thought alone. This would explain the impossible movements, the anti-logical physics, the refusal of their bodies to decompose or obey entropy. Perhaps they are not creatures at all, but constructs too advanced to distinguish from life. Some Forge Worlds whisper that the STC records for stellar shepherd constructs were deliberately deleted. Others believe void whales are remnants of forgotten experiments in self-assembling void ecologies, that they were never built to be seen. They were built to shape currents, to conduct resonance, to tune gravity. They were never meant to die. The cult Mechanicus, bound by ritual and fear, oscillates between blasphemy and awe. Some tech priests recite binaric canticles in their presence. Others avert their lenses entirely. The rituals surrounding void whale remains are elaborate and contradictory. Some command isolation, others demand communion. In one rare instance, a magos from Ryza embedded a section of void whale neural matrix into a Skitarii alpha, hoping to birth a new level of command intuition. The result did not speak. It did not move. It simply turned, looked at the magos, and said in perfect Gothic, "You are not allowed." It then tore itself apart, particle by particle, with no explosion, no scream, just a controlled unmaking. These events are not discussed. They are not taught. The Omnissiah does not make mistakes. To admit that the void whale exists outside the sacred pattern is to admit that the pattern was incomplete. And that is heresy. So the Mechanicus does what it has always done, codifies the silence. It assigns complex designations no one will ever say aloud. It declares void whales sacred in form and profane in function, not to be destroyed, not to be worshipped, simply to be endured. But beneath the rites, the incense, the sacred oils and recursive chants, there is fear. The kind of fear only the cult Mechanicus can feel. Not fear of chaos, not fear of ignorance, but fear of encountering a machine that no longer obeys, a construct that evolved beyond programming, a logic that rejected its creator. This is what they dare not say, that these whales are not beasts. They are echoes of a technology too pure to survive. And every time we see one, we remember what we lost. The void whale does not speak, it does not cry, it does not roar across the stars. And yet, to witness one, truly witness it, is to hear something. Not in the ear, nor the vox, nor the mind, but somewhere deeper. A resonance buried in the bones, a pressure behind the breath, an echo that doesn't fade even when the stars return. What are they really? Every answer peels back into another question. Every theory collapses under its own weight. Life form, construct, myth, none of it fits cleanly. None of it endures the silence that follows. Because that's what the void whale really is. A silence so vast it becomes presence. They do not interact with us. They do not devour, destroy, or flee. They exist outside conflict, outside reaction, outside the rituals that define everything else in this galaxy. They are beyond hunger, beyond rage, beyond fear. But they are not passive. There are accounts, too few, too rare, too dangerous to even file properly, of individuals who claim communion. Not messages, not visions, something closer to impression. A feeling imprinted in their memory like a scar, a weight they carry for the rest of their lives. Some grow still, some go mad. A few simply stop speaking, as though words have become too shallow. One inquisitorial record, archived, sealed, then erased, describes a survivor recovered from a wreck found curled against the rib structure of a void whale's corpse. He spoke only once. He said, "I saw the end. It was not fire. It was memory. And it forgave us." This is the unbearable possibility, that the void whale is not a threat, not even a mystery, but a witness, a vessel, a memory older than empires, older than gods, a fragment of something so ancient and vast that all of our history, the rise and fall of civilizations, the burning of worlds, the screams of saints and traitors alike, are nothing but brief flickers reflected on its skin. We do not understand them because they do not move within time as we do. We pass like comets. They remain. We act. They observe. We scream. They remember. Perhaps that is the truth that binds all the sightings, the rituals, the heresies and hauntings. Void whales do not threaten us. They contain us. They are memory, made flesh. They are silence, given shape. They are the galaxy's confession. And when the last light dies, when the last prayer is uttered into the void, they will still be there, gliding across the ruins of what was carrying the shape of all that ever lived, on the inside of their skin. You've made it to the end, but you feel it too, don't you? This doesn't end here. It follows you. So carry this with you, share it, let others see, let others feel, subscribe, pass it forward, become the ripple that echoes through the dark. Because something out there remembers us, and it is still watching.